Welcome to Lesson 3, Memory. Types of long-term memory, including episodic, semantic and procedural. My name is Nick Redshaw and I have over 16 years experience of teaching A-level psychology. I'm also co-author of the highly successful Independent Learner series of student workbooks available exclusively on Amazon. Types of long-term memory, including episodic, semantic and procedural. In contrast to the claim of the multi-store model of memory that long-term memory is a single store, research by Tulving 1985 claims that there are in fact three different stores within long-term memory. Tulving recognized semantic memory and expanded the model to include procedural memory and episodic memory. We'll now look at these individually. Procedural memory. This is the part of long-term memory that is responsible for knowing how to do things, also known as motor skills. As the name implies, procedural memory stores information on how to perform certain procedures, such as walking, talking, and riding a bike. Once we have mastered these skills, we can carry out these tasks without thinking. We'll now move on to semantic memory. This is the part of the long-term memory that processes ideas and concepts that are not drawn from personal experience. Semantic memory is our general knowledge of the world, such as the names of colours, the sounds of letters, the capital cities of the world, and other basic facts that we acquire throughout our lifetime. Finally, episodic memory. This is the memory of autobiographical events, times, places, associated emotions, and other contextual who, what, when, where, and why knowledge that can be explicitly stated. It is the collection of past personal experiences that occurred at a particular time and place. If you are using one of our workbooks, or your teacher has downloaded our workbook from TESS, complete the following exercises. If you haven't got one of our workbooks, then complete them on a piece of paper. Information stored with reference to time and place refers to A. Episodic memory, B. Procedural memory, or C. Semantic memory. Hopefully here you've chosen episodic memory, A. Episodic memory. Moving on, in long-term memory, information not available for conscious inspection refers to procedural memory, true or false. Hopefully here you've put true. Okay, I'd now like you to complete the following web task. Write a very brief outline of the study, one sentence or two. Evaluate the methods used or ethical issues that arise and say why they support or challenge Tulving's research. Tip here, cut and paste the actual researcher's name into Google and it will come up with the study. That's what we did, so we know it works. You may want to pause the video at this point in order to complete the exercise. Okay, welcome back. Bauer et al. 1969, Semantic Memory in Long-Term Memory. Bauer et al. 1969 also demonstrated the power of organization. Subjects had 112 words to learn, presented in 4 trials, 28 words a trial. Half the subjects were presented with the words organized into conceptual hierarchies. The other half was simply shown lists of words. They found that subjects presented with the organized list remembered around 47% more than subjects presented a list without organization. Evaluation. Here, as for lab experiments, i.e. good control, etc. Weaknesses: lacks mundane realism. Does it support Tulving's 1985 three types of long-term memory? It supports semantic memory, as according to most research, organizing is achieved through semantic hierarchies, but does not look into the other two memories. Conway et al. 1994. Episodic memory in long-term memory. The aim here to investigate a flashbulb memory from the memorable event of Margaret Thatcher's resignation. Method. Opportunity sampling of 923 participants were interviewed soon after she resigned. Just over a third were interviewed 11 months later. Details of the memory resignation were assessed for vividness and accuracy. Results: 86% had accurate memory, which could be considered a flashbulb memory. Conclusion: a flashbulb memory was formed from the distinct event. Evaluation: a longitudinal study and nearly two-thirds of participants were lost. This makes the remaining sample likely to be biased and results may lack generalizability. Does it support Tulving's 1985 three types of long-term memory? It supports episodic memory, but does not look into the other two memories. Evaluation. Strengths. Clinical case studies of brain-damaged patients support the claim that there are separate components within long-term memory. HM was a 27-year-old that suffered from severe epilepsy. In an attempt to cure this, surgeons removed most of his hippocampus. He remembered most events from before the operation, but could not store new episodic and semantic memories. He could, however, learn new skills such as playing tennis, as part of the brain that deals with procedural memory was unaffected. Clive Waring was a famous musician who suffered a rare brain infection in 1985, leaving him with a moment-by-moment memory, although he could still recall information from his procedural memory, such as how to play the piano. Tulving et al. 1994 used brain imaging equipment such as PET scans to confirm that different parts of the brain deal with different types of long-term memory. Being able to identify different areas of the LTM has allowed psychologists to help patients with acquired brain injury go on to lead a normal life. For example, Belleville et al. 2006 found that episodic memories could be improved in older people with mild cognitive impairment. Limitations. Cohen and Squire 1980 claim that episodic semantic memory are part of declarative memory, i.e. can be consciously recalled and as such are not separate types of long-term memory as claimed by Tulving. So, can you think of any problems that may arise from using data gathered from case studies that use a small number of participants? Whilst this isn't a marked question in the workbook, the limitation of case studies are as follows. It is difficult to generalize the results of a case study because it's only carried out on one individual or a small number of individuals. This also makes it difficult to replicate. The sensitivity of many of the topics means that the findings are subject to participant bias, as participants may lie or exaggerate in order to provide socially desirable answers. It is also subject to researcher bias, where they may ask certain questions or interpret findings in such a way as to support their research aim and hypothesis. The small-scale study and sample methods used in case studies mean that they lack scientific validity. So if this was a 2-mark question, basically provide a clear outline of one of the above limitations that may arise from using data gathered from case studies that use a small number of participants. So moving on to our final exercise, the homework independent task. I would recommend you carry this out. Outline and evaluate the multi-store model of memory. In your answer, refer to research into different features of each store in terms of coding, capacity and duration. This is worth 12 marks, 6 marks of AO1 and 6 marks of AO3. AO1, demonstrate knowledge and understanding of scientific ideas, processes, techniques and procedures. Here, describe the theory in as much detail as possible. However, don't be tempted to include all the detail you have learnt. Keep it concise and to the point. AO3, analyse, interpret and evaluate scientific information, ideas and evidence, including in relation to issues. Formulate conclusions from data provided in the question. Evaluate the strengths and limitations of studies and theories. Use of evidence to support or contradict the theory. Relevant link to other studies, theories or explanations. You may want to pause the video at this point or come back to the video for the answer, but I would recommend you carry out these 12 markers. So, for the top mark, if this was a 16 marker or a 12 marker, 16 marks if you're doing the full A level, 12 marks if you're doing the AS Year 1. Knowledge of the multi-store model of memory needs to be accurate and generally well detailed. Discussion needs to be thorough and effective and include research into the different features of each store in terms of coding, capacity and duration. The answer needs to be clear and coherent. Specialist terminology needs to be used effectively. Whilst it is unlikely that you do so, if you only include the description without any reference to the features of each store and evaluation of the MSM, then you'll score a maximum of 8 marks if it's a 16 marker or 6 marks if it's a 12 marker. Up to 6 marks for knowledge and understanding of the multi-store model of memory and the key features of each store in terms of coding and capacity and duration is your AO1 possible content. Atkinson and Schifrin in 1968 claimed that memory is like an information processing system where data flows from one store to another in a linear fashion, transferring from sensory to short-term via attention and for description of rehearsal loop from short-term to long-term. So the model emphasizes the structure and processes of memory. You'll gain marks for naming each store: sensory, memory / register, short-term memory and long-term, and accurate information about the characteristics in terms of duration, capacity and coding of each store. So, sensory register deals with and stores all information from our 5 senses, known as modalities. Coding information is registered by the senses and as such is modality specific. Capacity, unlimited. Duration only lasts for approximately 200 to 500 milliseconds before it fades away. Short-term memory holds limited amounts of information for a short time. Coding, information is registered acoustically, i.e. based on the sound of the word. Capacity, limited capacity of 7 plus or minus 2. Duration, a short duration of about 18 seconds. Long-term memory holds unlimited amounts of information for a long time. Coding information is registered semantically, i.e. based on the meaning of the word. Capacity is unlimited capacity, and the duration is potentially forever. So, AO3 possible evaluation. Evaluation of the MSM in terms of strengths and weaknesses. Analysis might include explanation of primacy and recency effects in serial position studies, Murdoch and Clanzer and Kunitz. Discussion of the nature of deficits in case studies of neurological damage, such as Clive Waring, Shallis and Warrington's brain damage. Use of research in support or contradiction of distinctions between the stores, sensory, short-term, long-term in terms of capacity, duration and coding, e.g. Sperling's research, Jacob, Miller, Peterson and Peterson, Barek et al., Badley, Shallis and Warrington, Murdoch, Clanzer and Kunitz, Peterson and Peterson. These should be used as evaluation to make clear how they support or go against the model of memory and not simply describe. If you do describe them, then we can class it as AO1. Likely weaknesses include an emphasis of rote rehearsal on a mechanism for transfer from short-term memory. For example, Hyde and Jenkins' study aimed to see if there was a difference between intentional and incidental learning. Their findings showed that there was no difference in the number of words recalled, therefore indicating rehearsal may not necessarily be key to the transfer of information from short-term to long-term. Comparison and contrast with alternative models of memory. Static view of short-term memory in contrast to the working memory model, which we will cover in the next lesson. View of stores as unitary. This is in contrast with different types of long-term memory, Tulving 1975, procedural, semantic and episodic memory. A point to bear here, examiner reports in the past have highlighted that evaluation comments tend to be weak, often only commenting about the model being too simplistic, or a good basis for other models, or has lots of research to support it, or making a comparison with other models, but failing to use this as evaluation of the multi-store model of memory. So, really link all the research mentioned above to the actual question being answered. Okay, that brings us to the end of this lesson.